Shai, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm Angelica. I'm a journalist and author. I'm very excited to hear about Virgin tonight. So can we just start? Can you tell me a little bit about how you ended up being the CEO of Virgin Atlantic?
Yeah, and funnily enough, people think that I'm CEO of Virgin Atlantic Israel. And that's not true. I'm actually just CEO of Virgin Atlantic. But I was born and raised in Israel, in Jerusalem. And went through the traditional upbringing in Israel. So I lived in Jerusalem. I have a brother and sister. My father was a doctor. We kind of moved around, but went to the military. I was a platoon commander and a battalion operational officer in the tank corps. And then I always knew that I wanted to, see the world. And in 1992, I moved to New York and worked in the Ministry of Defense in New York. And then I was very lucky. I studied at nighttime and got into Columbia Business School. And after business school, I got a job at Morgan Stanley in the investment bank here in London. And the rest is history. So I've been in London for 25 years. So this is in many ways home. Yeah.
Was there a particular draw to aviation?
No, absolutely not. If there's one thing I would like anyone here who's considering a career, do not try and run an airline. It's a bad move. It's the most fascinating and rewarding job you can ever do, but it's not one. No, I got into aviation about 9 years ago. I've been working with Richard Branson for many years. Somebody had to take a board seat on Virgin Atlantic. It needed a turnaround. I joined as a board member. I recruited the then CEO. He asked me to join Virgin Atlantic as CFO. I said, I'll do it once. And so it was not a passion for aviation. It was a passion for businesses, people, the brand, and the opportunities.
Amazing. Well, I'd love to know, I'm sure everyone would love to know what it's like working alongside Richard Branson.
So that's a question.
That's a question.
Look, he's a one in a million guy. He's everything that you see and more. So in many ways, he is the most intuitive person you'll meet in terms of just assessment of situations and risks and people. He is an absolute gambler, unbelievable gambler. And I'm not talking about gambling he'll do that as well. But he'll gamble on people, he'll gamble on ideas, he'll gamble on himself. He's funny, he's relentless. He's very shy in many ways. His persona is a very big persona, but if you put him into a room where he doesn't know anyone, yeah, he'll find his way because he knows how to do this. He's a professional. I mean, he's the best. But in many ways, he's a shy, introvert person. I like him a lot. It helps.
What's some of the big things that you've learned working alongside him, or things that he's taught you?
So he, like I said, first of all, the risk-taking. This ability to put something on red and know that it may lose. And it loses, and he'll still come back and put it on red because he believes in it. I mean, we've all seen the Galactic story. This has been around for 17 years, and finally he made it. I can tell you that I sat in a room. Actually, it's not a room. We were next to the pool on his island, and when he, with other smart executives, told him, Richard, this is a really bad idea. You can't afford this. It's going to cost a lot of money. If we were you, we say, really shrink it down. Let's focus on the technology. And I'm sharing a story I should probably not share, but he said, Shai, you're going to be sitting in this seat in exactly, few years' time. He thought it was going to be quicker. And you're going to ask for a huge apology from me. And I may or may not accept that apology, depending on how I feel. And he was right. So his ability to just take calculated but uncalculated risks and not worry about the consequences. I think he does love money, but he loves it in a way that is pure, in the sense that it's a measurement rather than just the rewards that the tremendous wealth brings. You never beat him in sports. You never, there's nothing that he hates more than losing.
Amazing. With a job role like yours, what kind of qualities or attributes have you had to kind of develop to step into that CEO role?
Well, I've been CEO since January 1, 2019, so I'm just finishing my 3 years. My tenure is an unusual tenure. It started off with one thing, and in the past 2 years, it's been the most humbling and challenging and amazing in many ways. It's all this yin and yang. So I don't think I was prepared for this, but I was glad it was me. And maybe it is this Israeli upbringing. Maybe it is the fact that I've seen difficult situations. Maybe it is the fact that I'm not fearful of a lot of things. And maybe it's this ability to just lead people through crisis. But I've been very fortunate, actually. I say that with all that comes with it. I've been very fortunate to be in my position and see the amazing people of Virgin Atlantic fight for survival. And it has been a fight for survival over the past 2 years. Our fight is not over, but I'm not worried about whether Virgin Atlantic will be here for the next 37 years. And by the way, the heart is coming back, and pretzels are coming back, and I'll tell you about the ice cream in about 5 minutes. We're on the case. It's just done. Yeah, Paul Mills and I talked. And when you come to these events, right, everybody wants to tell you either how amazing it was or how shit the service was. And can you get them an upgrade? Please don't call me. It's actually a privilege to kind of work within a community which we serve. We've only been flying to Israel. That's going to be the end of my plug. We've been flying to Israel for 2 years. When we launched the route, we took all our people to Golders Green and we did 2-day cultural event. No. This is not. They learned about the different cultural aspects. They went shopping in Golders Green. They learned about the food. The food that we have, the kosher wines that we brought on place. So we are now the largest carrier into Israel and intend to stay there for a very long time. But going back to your question, this has been an unusual period. Running an airline in general, running an airline in the UK, and running an airline that focuses on the transatlantic. 60% of our capacity is across the Atlantic. So it's been very, very difficult. And of course, the last set of measures doesn't help. But we are so agile and quick now in our decision making. We believe we can do anything and get through this.
I love that. Do you know if they went to Carmeli's or Daniel's on this tour?
I think it was Carmeli's.
Oh, okay. It's a solid
I
choice.
am not, I don't live in North London. I live in West London. But we did want to make sure that when we provide service on board, that our crew understood the cultural heritage of serving a very specific community to Israel. By the way, when we launched our service to Pakistan, we did exactly the same thing. But we have champions. We have crew champions who understand. Some of them are Jewish, some of them are not Jewish. Who understands the particularities of, what does it mean to pray on board? What does it mean to have kosher food? What does it mean to be sensitive to the needs of our community? And, I'm proud that we did it, but it's nothing to do just with Israel. It's just Virgin Atlantic in an exclusive manner.
Amazing. So speaking of Israel, what changes are you seeing in terms of Israel within the Middle East? Do you think it's going to be the big kind of global player within the Middle East because of the changes in the last few years?
Yeah, and I refrain from talking about politics when it comes to Israel. So I don't know what to say about where Israel is going, and my expectations from grandeur start, I'll say this only once. We need peace in the Middle East, and Israel has a big part to play. What I love about Magen David Adom is it's red, and blood has no boundaries and no borders. So that's why I like the notion of what we're doing here, what you guys are contributing to, and what you guys are supporting. because I believe in mankind and humanity and people. I've seen it all before. So I think for Israel to really play its part in the Middle East, it must solve some very big problems first.
How important was it for Virgin to develop that route from London to Tel Aviv?
It was a commercial decision. Everybody knows that if you run an airline, you have to fly to the place where the CEO wants to fly. So I said, it would be really cool, that picture over there. Wouldn't it be cool to show up in Israel and my mother can wave and I'll wave back? And she wasn't there. But so we flew to Israel because it was very convenient for me and my family. But the real reason is it's a great route. The connectivity that we have here in London at Heathrow for the passengers coming in from Israel is second to none when you want to fly to the US, the Caribbean, South Africa, and so forth. Second, it's just a very good market, right? GDP is up, technology is up. The wealth in Israel is second to none. Of course, it's the most expensive city in the world these days, which is not so good. So we just thought it would be a very good route to fly. We only, during the pandemic, we moved to cash management. We didn't move to profitability. Everything had to contribute cash. And if it didn't contribute to cash, we were not flying the route. And Tel Aviv continues to fly and contribute to Virgin Atlantic. And hopefully we provide, not always, a great service. And if we don't provide a great service, we take it very seriously and we'll improve the next time.
I'd love to know, what other changes have you seen in the way that people travel because of the pandemic?
So first of all, I don't know just how many people here have not been on a plane since the pandemic. Okay. See, that's not a small number of people. So I think when people get on a plane right now, first of all, they're apprehensive. Some of them are fearful. The procedures within the airports, the anxiety getting to the airports, the tests when you arrive and when you land, the changes that we have to make to our schedules. It's not the traditional and what people have expected. So I've seen that. I'll give a small anecdote. Our champagne consumption on board is double and triple what it was in 2019. No, and I think that's an indication of the fact that people want to treat themselves, people are anxious, people want to, relax with alcohol, but it's double or triple. So I think that's a good indication of how travel has changed.
Absolutely.
It's costing us. Yes, we're paying for that, yes. But tickets have also gone up.
Yeah, I know.
Is that a complaint? I've got a deal for you, man.
It's a champagne trade-off. Sustainability is obviously a huge topic at the moment, and with COP26, what's Virgin doing in the sustainability space?
Well, we didn't just wake up and do sustainability. We've been doing sustainability for 10 to 13 years. The first flights with biofuels were in Virgin Atlantic from Gatwick with fuel produced by a company called LanzaTech. But if you're looking at airlines, so in September we published our manifesto. It's a consumer manifesto, which says that this is important. We understand that you may travel differently in the future. You may not do a day trip to Brussels and you may not do a day trip to New York. And you want to know that we put this at the heart of everything we do. So if you look at an airline realistically, and we're committed to net zero by 2050, we're committed to reducing our our CO2 emissions by 15% by 2030. We're committed to 10% sustainable aviation fuels by 2030. But when you evaluate an airline, three things. First, the number one thing is the youngest fleet in the sky. The younger the fleet, the less emissions. We have reduced our CO2 emissions by 19% from 2007 to 2019. We'll go another 15% with the fleet. We have the youngest fleet across the Atlantic. No one will match it. You will see that we will start, hopefully, within 12 to 18 months, producing, just like when you buy a home, who is, the green and the amber and the red in terms of energy. We should be doing that for CO2 because we have the youngest fleet in the sky. Second, sustainable aviation fuel, which basically reduces 70% of the CO2 emissions compared to traditional kerosene. That's a tremendously difficult problem, but we're committed to have 10%. The UK is also doing that, but I'll give you the size of the problem. 2030, the fuel consumption in the world is going to be 400 million tons. 10% of that, which is global kind of commitments, is 40 million tons. Known plants in the world, 4 million tons, and production this year is about 150,000 tons. So the scale up of the problem is 1 in 300 or so. That's the scale of the opportunity. That's the scale of the challenge. So sustainable aviation fuel, and from whatever else is left, what we call gold standard offsets. So we will have to buy offsets. You will have to buy offsets collectively. Offsets is buying or investing or buying CO2 credits from, for instance, a solar farm, a mangrove in the Caribbean, carbon capture into the ground. So other things that reduce CO2, that if we cannot do it ourselves, we will buy the CO2 credits for people who can do that. That's offsetting. So gold standard offsetting, because you want to do this with good projects.
No, fantastic. I love the audience participation. Fantastic. So just to finish, we mentioned before about Magen David Adom. Can you just tell me a little bit about what the organization means to you personally?
Well, again, look, if you grow up in Israel, if you grow up in Israel, an ambulance is Magen David Adom. And my father was a doctor, so health has always been there. Family members have been volunteers in Jerusalem and elsewhere in Magen David Adom. And like I said, I like the fact that it treats everyone equally. Actually, that's what I like about it, that it doesn't care who you are. It only cares that you need something very, very important, life-saving, of course. So yeah, it's a great cause here, everywhere. So I think it's one of the good ones.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So my final question really is, what's next for you?
We need to get out of this pandemic in a strong position. So we're in a very strong position. We are emerging from this in a strong position to really provide service to our customers for the next 37 years. And for me personally, our plan is called Velocity X. It's a twin-engine plane with one engine, which is a very clear vision of becoming the most loved travel company. And the other one is becoming sustainably profitable. And my job, our job, is to ensure that happens.
Whilst providing a lot of champagne in the meantime.
Maybe it can go down a bit, just a tad. But it's and the hearts. The hearts are coming.
And the pretzels.
And the pretzels, and the ice cream, everything.
Well, thank you so much. So we've got some time now. So we've got some time now for some audience questions. So if there's anything that you would like to ask, Shai, yes, on the front.
If there's a microphone.
I'm not just saying this, but I have pondered for many years what was the thinking behind the name Virgin.
Well, you're asking. It's a very good question, and I think Richard just came up with it. Literally, I don't think it was. He had the student newspaper. He needed a name. Virgin seemed to be the name.
I think it had a sort of shock element at that time.
It did, and all the Virgin companies are now called Virgin and the name of the company. The name Virgin itself, actually, in a branding perspective, doesn't really exist. The Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Money, Virgin Cruises, Virgin, and so forth. But the name Virgin, I think Richard came up with it very, very early on, and it just stuck.
After a lot of champagne.
Probably.
So many bottles.
At least a lot of champagne, yes.
Do we have any more? Would anyone like to ask anything? There's a lady in the front. Wait, there's a microphone coming to you. 1 second. There you go. I think it's for everyone.
It's for the other people.
I wanted to ask about the carbon offsetting. Do you try and use less, or are you just paying for things to try and offset what you do?
No.
I never understand the difference.
We are trying, as I said, we are trying to use less. And we reduce our carbon year in, year out by, but first of all, investing in the most advanced engines and technologies on our planes. Our average age of our fleet, we have currently 37 wide-body planes going up to 46 wide-body planes. And the average age of our fleet today is 6.1 years. That is the youngest fleet in the sky. By 2025, we will have 100% next generation fleets and the best and youngest fleet across the Atlantic. And that would reduce the consumption by a further 15%. So first you must do actions.
Right.
But in aviation, it's very hard to get to zero. We need to get to zero by 2050.
Right. And sorry, can I just do one little add-on? Sorry. So is there a way that the fuel, you can use something, is it the fuel that's causing
Yes.
all the pollution?
Yes. And
So so generally people are looking for something to use instead of that fuel. Is that what's happening?
that's right.
If you don't mind, I'm going to ask a question. Shai, is it true some of your family are MDA volunteers? And could you tell us a bit about what they get up to?
Well, they're not now because they're in the military. But one of them was a very avid volunteer in Jerusalem, and she loved it. I mean, she was everywhere. She wants to be a doctor, but a few months ago, went into the IDF, and she's now doing a course in intelligence and computer science.
I think we've got time for one more
Yeah.
question.
There's one over there at the back.
Do you mind if I go to the table? I'm going to go to the back.
I'll ask you directly.
Hi, Shai.
Hey,
As someone who's benefited from plenty of domestic flights between London and Glasgow, and hearing that there's plans to possibly ban these short domestic flights, starting with between maybe London and Manchester, what do you think is the future of aviation in terms of? I appreciate that Virgin is a long-haul airline, but do you think that's going to have a big impact on the airline industry going forward?
look, there is no doubt that we're in front of an existential challenge. We all think that the pandemic is the greatest challenge of our lifetime. It isn't. This will come and go, but I believe personally that climate change will be and is the challenge of our lifetime. So, and I appreciate that I work in an airline. So our job is to make sure that travel is available to people. I won't say guilt-free, but in a way that allows them to connect with loved ones, travel the world and fuel curiosity, but also, of course, fuel the economy. So I think it's a necessity. And I say that I always believe in innovation forward. I don't believe innovating backwards. So travel and aviation is here to stay. But I will say that, if there is in France, for instance, but also here, if there's a perfectly good train ride, you shouldn't fly. Don't fly. Take the train. I have no problems with that. And that should put the burden on our politicians to actually, finish up upgrade the rail system and the road system and make sure that connectivity for short distances can be done not with planes. And if it doesn't work out, nobody's going to travel from Glasgow to Southampton because it's going to take them 10 hours. So they're going to get on a plane. And that's because our infrastructure here is not good enough.